It's a tall task, but can Luke Fickell's Wisconsin Badgers beat Alabama this weekend? It's going to be tough. Let's talk about it. Locked On Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman, coming up on 40 years as a sports talk show host and play-by-play announcer. I want to thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com and get started today. The Badgers and Bama, going to be a big one. Plus, we have some Big Ten news, and Sherrone Moore finally signed his contract at Michigan, and our Big Ten Classics heading into the weekend. So, Alabama is coming to Camp Randall to take on the Wisconsin Badgers. It's a big game for the Badgers and Luke Fickell's program overall. It's a true measuring stick to see where the Badgers program is right now, early in year 2 for Fickell, and maybe show them just how far they still need to go to get to that upper level of college football. But the first question is, can the Badgers win this game? What do you think? I mean, it would take quite an effort to do so, and Wisconsin would need a big push from a home crowd atmosphere, which they'll have. I'm sure that place will be rocking out there at Camp Randall. We'll X and O this thing a little bit in a minute, but let's also acknowledge the fact that we don't get games like this very often. This is just the third time ever between these two schools. Wisconsin won the first meeting 15-0 in 1928. Both schools opened the 2015 season together more recently. I was in Arlington at Jerry's World down there in Texas. Tide won that game 35-17. This meeting will take place in front of a national TV audience at noon on Fox. Both teams come into this game with 2-0 records. Now, the big news here for the Badgers was, they were going to have a quarterback this year. Everybody was all excited about Miami transfer Tyler Van Dyke, and he's been leading the offense thus far. Now, you everydayers on this podcast, you know that I'm not the biggest fan of Van Dyke. He's a talented kid, but he's way too inconsistent. I live in the state of Florida. I saw him at Miami. All right. It's up and down, up and down. And he's not been exactly lighting the offense on fire for the Badgers in the first 2 games against Western Michigan and South Dakota. In 2 games so far, he's completed just 60% of his passes, and he's just got 1 touchdown pass. That's it. For the record, we're Braden Locke fans here on the depth chart for the Badgers. Just throwing that out there in case you're new to the podcast. But if you're a regular, you know. The running game, Ches Malusi, coming back from that horrible injury last year. He hasn't been awesome. Not bad, but not awesome. He's got 134 yards in 2 games with 3 touchdowns. And it just seems like Wisconsin's not as physical as it has been in the past. This might be a big problem against a team like Alabama, if you ask me. But there's a school of thought here, all right? Maybe a little ray of hope, a little silver lining, if you will, that Wisconsin's been holding things close to the vest a little bit, doing just enough to win against these lesser schools and not putting a lot of film out there for Alabama to watch. The Crimson Tide may get the real Wisconsin Badgers that nobody's seen yet. That would be great if that's true. I don't know if it is or not. I don't know. That'd be awesome. Alabama, they beat Western Kentucky easily in its opener, and it took everything they had last week, though, to beat South Florida. So they were figuring out some things, too. And by the way, that's 2 years in a row South Florida's given them a game. Now, you might be saying, hold on, wait a minute. The Alabama-South Florida game, Craig, that was 42-16? Yeah, that's true. But it was a 14-13 ball game in the fourth quarter. And then the dam broke, and, South Florida couldn't hang with Alabama at that point. Plus, I got to tell you, Bama was pretty sloppy. They've got some stuff to clean up. They're looking at this Wisconsin game as a get right game. They gotta get things right, or they're not going to get a win in here. They know that in Camp Randall. They lost 3 fumbles and they posted 13 penalties. That's not Alabama football. No, it is not. In fact, I know after watching a lot of football that if a Nick Saban coached Bama team lost 3 fumbles and had 13 penalties, first of all, that would never happen. But if it did, hypothetically, they would be darn near perfect the next week because they would be grinding it out in practice. That would not be a fun week of practice. You can be sure of it. So we'll see if the new coach, Kalen DeBoer, who took over for Saban when he retired, has the same effect, cleaning things up week to week. Now, the Badgers defense is going to have to contend with Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe, who last year arguably was the most improved quarterback from the beginning of the college football season to the end of the college football season. He wasn't very good at the beginning, but by the end, I mean, you all saw him, took Michigan to overtime in the Rose Bowl in the college football playoff last year. He's off to a good start this year. He's yet to throw an interception. Plus, he's a great runner and a dual threat quarterback that has to be contended with. His favorite threat is Ryan Williams downfield, 6 catches for 207 yards and 3 touchdowns already this year. Wisconsin's going to have to make sure they know where he is at all times. And maybe that guy will be Ricardo Hallman. Of course, he led the Badgers last year with 7 interceptions. Hasn't gotten one yet this year, so he's due. Maybe in a big game like this, Hallman could come up with a pick or 2 and make a difference in this game. Great time to start getting your first interception of the year, I'll tell you that. Also adding, though, to the challenges for the Badgers on defense, senior linebacker Jake Chaney, we talked about this a little bit yesterday. He's going to miss the first half because of those quirky targeting rules. So here's the deal. He's partially suspended for the first half of this game because he had a targeting call in the win against South Dakota. If you get a second half penalty, you got to sit out the first half of your next game when you get tossed from that one. Unusual play, too. He hit with the crown of his helmet, which you can't do, but he hit the opposing player in the stomach, not the head. Right in the soft part of the stomach with the helmet. You don't see that called very often. But that was called on him. So anyway, that'll be a deficit for the Badgers defense starting this game on Saturday. So in the end, I think the Badgers, they can win this game. Absolutely, they can. You're going to have to do some work, and they might need a little home luck from the crowd at Camp Randall. So, and man, I'll tell you, I have never been to Camp Randall. It's on the bucket list of places to go. That place always looks like it's hopping. You Badger fans who are watching, man, those home football games are spectacular. So with Alabama coming in here, national television audience, I'm expecting a big raucous environment, very similar to what we saw last weekend when Nebraska hosted Colorado for the night game on NBC. That place was electric. I expect every bit of the same atmosphere, even though it's earlier in the day at noon there at Camp Randall for this football game. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's one of the biggest games on the schedule for the day. And obviously we're wishing the Badgers luck because we got a Big Ten anti-SEC thing going here. And the SEC already got us on the Michigan game last week with Texas. So we'll see what Wisconsin could do against Alabama in this one. All right. Hey, if you're new or if you just watch us once in a while, I'm going to ask you to subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. It's free. It doesn't require any other information from you. That's it. And it's free forever. And then you and I are on the same Big Ten loop every day. We picked up like 1,400 subscribers just in the last 28 days. So you can be one of those. That'd be great. And then if you subscribe, you don't mind, share with somebody, word of mouth. If you can just hit that share button and send this to somebody you know that's a Big Ten fan or an alum or whatever that doesn't know that we're out here every day grinding it for you guys, because it's not really grinding it. It's grinding that we're here every day, but it's fun. We have a lot of fun doing this. So subscribe, share, and follow Locked On Big Ten for free wherever you get your podcast. That way you get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. And a quick programming note. We go live on Saturdays after the big games and what have you. We are going to go live right here on our YouTube Big Ten channel, Locked On Big Ten, after the Indiana UCLA game. That's the night game on NBC at 7:30. So about 11 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Pacific for you UCLA fans. We're going to be going live after that game, but we're going to cover every game. And we'll start off, we'll talk about this Wisconsin-Alabama game and go down the list and talk about all with instant reaction to the day right here on your home for all things Big Ten, Locked On Big Ten. All right, we have some news to get to from around the Big Ten. We'll get to all that. And Sherrone Moore, for example, finally signed his contract at Michigan. Been coaching without a contract the first couple of games. All that's coming up next, plus our Big Ten classics right here on Locked On Big Ten. We'll tell you about Factor Meals. Factor Meals, they've got all these meals ready to go. If you've been working all day and you don't have any groceries at home and you don't want to cook, Factor Meals are ready to go. They take like 2 minutes. All right. They're all fresh, never frozen meals, dietitian approved, ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. 35 different meals, 60 add-ons each and every week. You can have a bunch of new flavors to explore. High-end stuff, shrimp, filet mignon, blackened salmon, whatever you want. So you can keep your time in the kitchen to a minimum. Head over to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 and use the code LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code LockedOnCollege50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 and get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. At FanDuel, sports are fun by themselves, but you got a little action going on with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Get that adrenaline going a little bit. I got a little something different here for you here. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every single or every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account, a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to download America's #1 sportsbook. Got a couple for you here tonight, Thursday night football. Buffalo. I like Buffalo plus 2.5 at the Dolphins. I like the over in the Rockies Tigers, and I like the Guardians over the Rays. Again, check it out at FanDuel.com/LockedOn. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, thank you for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen each and every day, especially everydayers out there. Meanwhile, be sure to subscribe on YouTube and share and like and follow Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. And don't forget our website, Talk Big Ten. That's with the number 10, talkbig10.com. Got all of our podcasts there, grouped chronologically or by school. And we got all your merchandise from your favorite team. Get yourself some new shirts and hats for the upcoming season to celebrate your team. TalkBig10.com. And again, set your alarm or calendar on your iPhone or whatever you do to remind yourself. We're going to be going live on our Locked On Big Ten YouTube channel following the final whistle of the Indiana-UCLA game on NBC from the Rose Bowl. We'll have a live post-game reaction to that and all the Big Ten games throughout the day. Michigan football coach Sherrone Moore has finally signed his contract with the university some 8 months after accepting the offer following the departure of Jim Harbaugh. The Michigan president, Santa Ono, who was very supportive of Jim Harbaugh back in the day, praised Moore as a proven leader and a great ambassador during his 7+ years at the school. Now, it's not that unusual to have this much time go by between contracts being signed and whatnot, back and forth between lawyers and agents and all. I mean, it's a little long, but it's Harbaugh didn't have a signed contract forever. It's kind of the way to do it, I guess. Moore's 5-year deal will pay him around $6 million a year. And the Wolverines look to rebound from last week's loss to Texas by taking on Arkansas State. Certainly, Michigan's offense has struggled the first 2 games. And Sherrone Moore, who used to be the offensive coordinator and play caller, he's backed off because he's the head coach now. Offensive coordinator, the new offensive coordinator, Kirk Campbell, still trying to figure out things and find his own rhythm with the play calling. But Moore, who's really delegated all the play calling to focus on all of his head coaching duties, seems to be sticking his head back in the door a little bit of the OC office. I think he's going to get a little more involved in the offense and try and get this thing going. But one thing will not change for Michigan football, and no matter who's designing or calling the offense, and that is Michigan will continue to be a run-first offense. Run to set up the pass. That you can bet on. By the way, I don't know if you saw this over the weekend. before with the Texas Michigan game going on Fox, Big Noon, Fox, all that. Urban Meyer. Apparently, we know his salary demands and what it would take for him, as he said on Fox's Big Noon kickoff on Saturday, what it would take to have him coach Michigan, former Buckeyes coach. Former player and his co-host Matt Leinart was egging him on a little bit. He said, "Hey, coach, would you coach Michigan for $10 million a year? That's the going rate for the upper echelon right now." Urban said no. So Leinart upped it. Said, "What about $25 million a year to coach Michigan?" And Urban said, "Yeah, I'm taking it." So there you have it. Urban Meyer, $25 million a year. Hey, from Michigan to Michigan State, the Spartans got a hard-earned upset win on the road last week at Maryland. That was very impressive. They won on a last-second field goal. Remember, they were 9.5-point underdogs. Now with an easier opponent at home like Prairie View A&M, the Spartans are 40.5-point favorites, according to our friends at FanDuel. It's like a 50-point turnaround from the week before, right? That would be the most the Spartans have been favored in nearly 10 years. Game kicks off at 3:30 on the Big Ten Network. And finally, there's a lot of noise coming out of Iowa this week, right? A lot of people upset with that heartbreaking loss to Iowa State, but it was kind of the way it unfolded, kind of like slow motion in front of everybody's eyes. Cade McNamara only threw for 99 yards in that game, and the passing attack was literally non-existent in the second half. So Coach Kirk Ferentz is taking a lot of heat for it, as he normally does for, the offense. And he's getting questions about benching McNamara and putting in Northwestern transfer Brendan Sullivan, who came over late in the spring. Now, Ferentz says he's open to all ideas, but and I know he's always kind of slow to pull the trigger on such a move. The Hawkeyes have a game against Troy this weekend. It'd be a good opportunity to put up some big offensive numbers, and maybe both of them can play, to be honest with you. Should be one of those kind of games. Should be. It's Iowa. You never know, right? You never know. All right. So, with that in mind, and everything going on this week, turning the corner, getting closer and closer now to this football weekend. Don't forget, tomorrow we'll have our pigskin picks. We'll have all the point spreads ready to go. I gave you a little hint as what Michigan State's is going to be, 40.5 against Prairie View A&M. We'll take a look at that. But today, on Thursdays, we like to take a look ahead to the weekend scheduling. Big Ten Classics and live Big Ten football, triple header, all on the Big Ten Network. We always like to promote that. We'll let you know what's going on in 1 minute right here on Locked On Big Ten. LinkedIn Jobs. Do you have an office that you're in charge of, or do you own a small business? And are you in charge of hiring people when there's some turnover going on? Well, there's a good way to do it. Go to LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. And on LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses, if you're in there, you're wearing a lot of hats and you might not have the time or the resources to hire people. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. And they've even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. You can be one of them too. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, it's time to take a look at the weekend programming on the Big Ten Network. Again, we're not affiliated with the Big Ten Network. Obviously, we have a lot in common, so we watch a lot of stuff on there, and they've got their slate of live games, highlight shows, tailgate shows, and, of course, Big Ten Classics. They like to if there's a game going on this weekend, they like to go play previous matchups between those two on previous years. It's always good. We always like to keep an eye on that. So I'm going to put this on full screen here so we can check it out. And if you're on audio only, we'll describe it for you so you don't feel like you're missing out on anything. So we'll put it up here and start it off with Friday the 13th. Do you know it's Friday the 13th? Friday, tomorrow? Friday the 13th, Friday, September 13th. And we'll pick it up at 2 o'clock Eastern. We got a Purdue football classic. Of course, this weekend, Purdue is taking on Notre Dame. So we're going to show you a Notre Dame at Purdue classic from 1999. 1999, actually. Drew Brees in that game, 317 yards and a touchdown, ran for another score to help lead the 20th ranked Boilermakers to a 28-23 victory over the 16th ranked Fighting Irish. Then at 4 o'clock, we've got a Oregon State at Oregon classic from last year. Bo Nix, who's now with the Broncos, passed for 2 touchdowns and ran for another score to lead the 6th ranked Ducks to a victory over the 16th ranked Beavers to clinch a spot in the Pac-12 championship game. Then at 6 o'clock Eastern, we've got a Washington football classic, the Apple Cup, and that's going on Saturday too. Washington and Washington State from 2022. Michael Penix Jr. threw for 484 yards and 5 touchdowns. Of course he did. That's all he did for 2 years there at Washington. As the 12th ranked Huskies got a victory over the Cougs, 55-31 to reclaim the Apple Cup. And then late Friday night, we got some Big Ten women's volleyball, Arizona State at Nebraska. That'll be a big one. Of course, Washington State at Washington. On to Saturday's programming on the Big Ten Network. They started off with they're doing their Big Ten tailgate show from Ann Arbor this week, 10 a.m. Eastern time. They'll be out there for Michigan, talking about everything that's going on with them, trying to figure things out, right? And they got that game against Arkansas State, which hopefully they can get things ironed out. And speaking of that game, by 12 o'clock, that's going to be their first live game of a Big Ten triple header on Saturday on the Big Ten Network, noon. Arkansas State at Michigan at the Big House, all right? Keep an eye on that quarterback situation and the running game. These are the things that they're going to be focusing on in this game. Then at 3:30, they're going to go from Michigan and Ann Arbor. They're going to go up to East Lansing for the Prairie View A&M game at Michigan State. And Aiden Childs, 3 touchdowns last week against Maryland, but he also had 3 interceptions. So I know they want to smooth that out a little bit. Again, 40.5-point favorites. We'll see if we think they're going to cover that number tomorrow when we have our pigskin picks. We'll give you our official pick on that. And then at 7:30, more Big Ten football, the game 3 of their triple header on Big Ten Network, Northern Iowa at Nebraska. That's another night game at Nebraska. And I mean, I don't know, Northern Iowa is not Colorado, but I'm just going to see what this atmosphere is going to be like at Nebraska. They're flying high there at Nebraska, coming off the high of beating Colorado soundly last week. And I'll tune in. I'll check this out. See Dylan Raiola, who's one of my favorite players to watch for sure at Nebraska. The guy's the real deal at quarterback. If you haven't had a chance to see him, go ahead and do so. And then for Sunday, the 15th, I only put one of these on here, but all day throughout the day on Sunday, the Big Ten Network does these Big Ten football in 60 highlight shows, 1 hour highlight show. They pick a game and they just edit it from snap to snap and get a 3.5 hour game into 60 minutes. And I know for sure they got a lot of TBA and the broadcasts all over the place all day long with different games. I know for a fact that the 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific will be the Indiana UCLA game at the Rose Bowl game from the day before. They're going to re-air that at 11 Eastern. That'll be 8 p.m. on the West Coast if you want to take a break from some NFL football and watch that. And again, all the other games throughout the day will be sprinkled in there too on the Big Ten Network. That's what they do each and every weekend. So there's your lineup, Big Ten Classics, and also live Big Ten football with the triple header on Saturday on the Big Ten Network. And enjoy it. Big Ten's everywhere. Big Ten Network, Fox, CBS, NBC. They got the sweetest media deal in all of college football. Big Ten is everywhere. You can catch every game. It's awesome. And we love talking about it right here every single day on Locked On Big Ten. So thank you for joining us. Many ways for you to interact with me. Of course, Twitter, Talk Big Ten, number 10. Our website where all of our podcasts go and where you can buy your favorite team's merchandise right there. Talk Big Ten, the number 10.com. You see the scroll on the bottom if you're watching on video. TalkBig10.com. And all the comments on YouTube. We've been putting polls up there lately for you to vote on stuff. You get your opinion kind of dialed in a little bit. So check all that out there on YouTube as well. And before you go, if you don't mind, subscribe. It's free. That helps us, and that gets you and me on the same page every day. And you can subscribe, share, follow, and like this podcast right now on your favorite podcast app, and you get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. Go back to our website, talkbig10.com, and go check out some other podcasts from this week if you missed them. Covered a lot of ground this week. Tomorrow, we'll look forward, obviously, break down every game. Just what we do on Fridays. We just rip through them all. We'll cover everybody in the Big Ten. It's a Friday show getting ready for all the big Saturday action. So you'll want to tune in for all that. And for a second listen, enjoy our friends on Locked On College Football. They have a podcast too, Locked On College Football, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast, part of the podcast, Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're this close to another week. Week 3 of college football. We'll be all over it. Thanks for joining us today, but I can't wait till we meet again tomorrow. For Locked On Big Ten, I'm Craig Sheeman. Talk to you then.